This lesson is about the importance of being ethical and ethical behavior. One really important reason for exhibiting ethical behavior and being ethical is that it inspires trust. And trust is a really important thing when you're looking for people to engage you in the activity of ethical hacking. They want to make sure that you are not going to exceed the bounds of your authority, and also that you're not going to do something that's going to damage their infrastructure or their reputation or any of their systems or critical data. As with any testing, hacking comes with risks, and it's important to always get permission before you do anything with a client or any sort of engagement. Here's an example here of an instance where someone didn't get permission and things got a little out of hand. Robert Morris Jr., also called RTM, was a graduate student at Cornell, and he wrote what was probably the first internet worm, and certainly the first that had a lot of notoriety. Morris said that the worm got out of his control, and he had originally expected that it was only going to stay in the lab where he was doing some work. Instead, it got through what was then the entire internet and took down a large number of systems. Now, one of the good things that came out of this was Carnegie Mellon decided that they would create the first computer emergency response team. But in the meantime, lots of users were without any ability to get to systems or get to the internet at large. So again, it's really important to get permission before you do anything. It's also really important to know what you've agreed to do. So when you get permission, you need to make sure that it's very clear what it is you've agreed to. You need to understand what the scope of your authority is and what systems you're allowed to touch and systems that you are not allowed to touch. As I mentioned earlier, hacking, as with any testing, comes with risks. And here's an example of the risk that you take with any sort of computer testing. A worker at United Airlines was doing some systems testing, and there was an error that occurred, and as a result, about 300 flights were impacted, either delayed or canceled. So lots of people were impacted due to this one error that occurred. No matter how careful you are, there's always a risk that you're going to have some negative impact on a system. Because of that, you also want to make sure that you are communicating closely and carefully with the client or the company that you are working with. You want to make sure they know what it is you're doing and when you're doing it so that they can communicate to any customers that there's testing going on and there's a possibility for outage. So again, it's certainly in the title, ethical hacking, but I can't stress enough how important being ethical is to this whole process and the work that you're undergoing.